Most people who end up changing the world, or even just their own world, do not look like winners in their 20s. They look like people who haven't figured it out yet. They look like people who are taking longer than everyone around them. They look like people who are falling behind. And in a culture that worships early success, that measures worth by achievement before 30, that treats the person who hasn't launched yet as someone who probably never will, looking like you're falling behind, is one of the most psychologically difficult things a person can experience. But there is a specific type of person for whom late arrival is not a detour. It is the design. And the traits that make them appear to be behind in the early chapters of their life are the exact same traits that make what they eventually build so much more durable, so much more original, and so much harder for anyone else to replicate. Today we are going to talk about that type of person, who they are, why they take longer, and why the wait, as painful as it is almost always worth it. Subscribe before we go any further, because what follows is one of the most important things I've put on this channel. Let's get into it. Who they are, the personality type we are describing, does not have a single clean label. It is not simply introversion. It is not simply high sensitivity. It is not simply perfectionism, though it contains elements of all three. What makes this type rare, genuinely rare, not in the flattering self-help sense, but in the precise psychological sense, is the specific combination of traits they carry and how those traits interact with each other. They are people who process experience deeply before they act on it, while others move quickly from impulse to action. This type moves slowly, not because they lack motivation or courage, but because their minds will not allow them to move forward on something they haven't fully understood. They need to know why, not just what. They need the thing to make sense at a level that goes below the surface before they can commit to it with the fullness that commitment requires. They are also people for whom authenticity is not optional. They cannot perform enthusiasm they don't feel. They cannot build something they don't believe in. They cannot sustain effort toward a goal that doesn't genuinely align with who they are, and who they are is something they take a very long time to understand. Because they are unusually complex internally, and complexity takes time to map. And they are people who are highly sensitive to quality, to the difference between something done well and something done to an adequate standard. This sensitivity to quality is a tremendous asset when it finally gets pointed in the right direction. But before it does, it tends to express as dissatisfaction, as an inability to settle, as a persistent sense that what they are currently doing is not quite the thing, without yet knowing what the thing actually is. Why they take longer? The first reason this type takes longer is that they cannot shortcut the understanding phase. For many people, you learn something well enough to use it, and then you move. For this type, well enough is never quite enough. They keep going deeper, not because they are indecisive or afraid, but because their minds are genuinely processing at a level that takes more time. This means that in the years when their peers are accumulating conventional achievements, this type is accumulating something less visible: depth of understanding, complexity of perspective, a slowly building map of who they are and what they are actually capable of. It doesn't show up on a resume. It doesn't show up in a title or a salary or a social media following. But it is being built, quietly and continuously, in a way that will eventually matter enormously. The second reason they take longer is that they refuse, sometimes at great personal cost, to commit to something that doesn't fit. Most people can talk themselves into something that's close enough, a career that's mostly satisfying, a path that makes practical sense even if it doesn't feel fully right. This type cannot. The misalignment registers too strongly. The discomfort of doing something that doesn't genuinely fit is too acute to sustain long term, no matter how much external pressure says they should be grateful to have it. And so they search longer. They endure more uncertainty. They tolerate the anxiety of not yet having found the thing, while everyone around them seems to have settled into theirs. This is not weakness. This is an extremely high standard for alignment between what they do and who they are, a standard that most people simply don't hold themselves to. And that this type cannot abandon, no matter how much easier it would be to let it go. If you recognize yourself in that description, hit the like button right now, because the next part explains what happens when this type finally finds the thing they've been searching for. The third reason they take longer is that they need genuine readiness, not just readiness enough. There is a version of launching something before you're ready that works fine for some personality types. You put something out, it's imperfect, you iterate. For this type, launching before genuine readiness is deeply uncomfortable, not because of vanity or fear of failure exactly, but because they are wired to care about the quality of what they put into the world. And releasing something that they know isn't ready yet feels like a violation of something important. This means they spend longer preparing, longer developing, longer building the foundation before they try to construct anything on top of it. And again, in a culture that rewards speed and visible progress, this can look like stalling, like perfectionism, like fear. But what it actually is, in most cases, is a very different relationship with readiness, one that produces things, when they finally emerge, that are built on something real. What changes when they find their thing here is what is remarkable about this personality type, and why their late arrival so often produces results that outlast what the early achievers built. When this type finally finds genuine alignment, when the work they're doing actually matches who they are at the level they require, something shifts that does not shift for most people. Their depth of processing, which previously looked like overthinking, becomes depth of execution. Their sensitivity to quality, which previously looked like dissatisfaction, becomes an extraordinary standard of craft. Their refusal to settle, which previously looked like instability, becomes the exact thing that separates what they build from everything that was built to an adequate standard. And perhaps most importantly, they bring to the work everything they accumulated during the long years of searching. All the understanding, all the perspective, all the complexity, all the failed experiments and the dead ends and the things they learned from paths that turned out to be wrong. None of it was wasted. All of it went in. And what comes out on the other side carries a richness and a depth and an authenticity that is almost impossible to manufacture. Because it cannot be manufactured. It can only be accumulated, slowly, through exactly the kind of long and non-linear journey that this type spent so many years feeling ashamed of. Subscribe right now if this is landing for you, because what I'm about to say next is the part that most people in this situation most need to hear. The cost of the wait. I want to be honest about something that most videos in this space are not honest about. The wait is genuinely hard. The years of searching, of not yet knowing, of watching people around you move forward while you're still trying to figure out the thing, this is not just mildly uncomfortable. For people wired the way we've been describing, it can be genuinely painful. It can produce real doubt, real despair, real questioning of whether the depth and the standards and the refusal to settle are assets or just elaborate ways of avoiding the discomfort of committing. The internal voice that says maybe there's nothing wrong with the path everyone else is on and you just aren't trying hard enough, that voice is loud. and it is persistent, and it knows exactly which insecurities to press on. And there are real people in the real world who will reinforce it. People who will interpret the searching as aimlessness, the depth of processing as overthinking, the high standards as an excuse, the non-linear path as evidence of something lacking. These people are not all malicious. Some of them care about you. They are simply applying the metrics of a culture that worships early conventional success to a person who is not going to find success through that path. And the mismatch between those metrics and your actual trajectory is not evidence that you're failing. It is evidence that you are on a path that those metrics were not designed to measure. What this type needs to know, if you are this person, if you are in the years of searching, of deep processing, of high standards that haven't yet found the thing they can fully commit to there are a few things that are genuinely important for you to understand. First, the depth you are accumulating is not wasted time. It does not feel productive in the conventional sense, because conventional productivity metrics are designed for linear paths, and this is not a linear path. But every layer of understanding you add, every dead end you learn from, everything you try that turns out not to be the thing, all of it is material. All of it goes into what you will eventually build. None of it is wasted, even when it looks, from the inside, like it might be. Second, your standards are not the problem. The culture around you will sometimes suggest that your dissatisfaction with things that aren't quite right is a form of self-sabotage, that if you could just lower the bar a little, accept something close enough, settle for adequate, you would already have found success. This is wrong. Your standards are not the obstacle. They are the quality that will define what you eventually produce. Protecting them is not self-indulgence. It is self-knowledge. Third, comparison is the most dangerous thing for someone on your path, because the people you are comparing yourself to are on different paths, with different timelines, building different things. Their early success is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that they found their path earlier, or that they settled for a path that fit close enough, which is a different thing entirely. The comparison is not just unfair. It is literally meaningless, because you are not building the same thing they are building on the same timeline they are building it. And fourth, the emergence, when it comes, tends to come suddenly from the outside, even though it was building slowly on the inside. One day you will not have found the thing. The next day, or the next month, or the next year, you will find it. And everything you accumulated during the search will suddenly have a place to go. And when that happens, the speed of your growth will surprise people who watched you take so long. But it will not surprise you, because you will recognize it as the return on the years of investment that only you could see were happening. Closing the rarest personality type does not succeed despite taking longer. It succeeds because of it. The depth, the standards, the refusal to settle, the long years of accumulation, these are not the price you pay for eventual success. They are the method by which that success is built. The world tends to celebrate the people who got there first, but it tends to remember the people who built something that lasted. And what lasts is almost never what was built fastest. It is what was built most truly, most aligned with genuine understanding, most faithful to high standards, most deeply rooted in the long and often invisible work of becoming someone who actually has something worth offering. You are not behind. You are building. And there is a significant, important difference between those two things. Hit that like button if this gave you something you needed to hear today. Drop in the comments, are you someone who has always taken longer than the people around you? Drop a yes or no below, I read every single one. And subscribe before you go, because next week we go deeper into the psychology of people who are building something real on a timeline that doesn't look like anyone else's. You do not want to miss it. Until then, keep building. The depth is not a detour. It is the foundation.